morning, everybody. Welcome to Meal Prep Monday. Hope you guys are all enjoying this beautiful Monday. It is gorgeous outside. I've already been outside a couple of times. It's a little bit cool, but gosh, I'll take it because y'all know how hot it's going to be before long here in Southeast Texas. It's been a busy morning here at Askew Acres. I started the morning by doing a little bit of an inventory in my freezer. So, as I've suggested to you several times before, you need to know what you have on hand before you start prepping. We did a meal prep. I was so happy to see so many of my friends Friday evening. We did a meal prep in Silsbee. Several of us got together and we each did 7 meals. So that means I have 7 more meals prepped in my freezer, but I also had a few left over from before. So this morning I got out my clipboard, I went in there and I checked to see what I had on hand. And you know, you can't put everything in the freezer, so got to make a list of what I might need to go with those items that I have on hand. And what I don't have on hand, I need to grab so I can use that up before I buy more. So it looks like for the next 2 weeks, I'm good. I'm good to go. I just need a few more things from the store. Let me get y'all pulled up and see who's joining me this morning. So that was step 1 this morning. But also gonna use some hamburger meat that I had already thawed out over the weekend, and you know, about 3 to 5 days after it's been out of the freezer, you need to go ahead and cook that. It doesn't need to be in the fridge any longer than that. You know, I've had mixed responses on when I researched if you can refreeze burger or ground meat. Honestly, they do it at the store. It comes to the store a lot of times frozen, and I did ask Penny Brown at Brown's Meat Market. She said even chicken, they get that frozen and then they put it out as fresh, not Brown's, but most grocers, put it out as fresh, it thaws, you take it home and you put it in your freezer. So a lot of times you do refreeze meat, you eat it, it's fine. So actually if you're refreezing it, you're refreezing it a second time. So you really don't want to do that. Now it is okay to cook the meat and then refreeze it. So a lot of times that's what I'll do. I'll go ahead and cook whatever I buy in batch. If I buy a big family pack of ground beef, I'll go ahead and cook that. Then break it up in portion size and then freeze it. But this was just a little 10-ounce package of lean ground chuck. Actually, I think it's ground sirloin that I had taken out over the weekend and we didn't use. So I'm gonna cook this up, and I'm actually doing a little recipe, or it was just a little experimental recipe that a friend, Debbie, shared with me, Debbie Berry. So if you're watching this, Debbie, thank you. I still make that hash that you told me about years ago. It's just an okra hash, I guess is what you call it. And of course, like anything else, I've tweaked it over the years. So they did keto, and I don't know if they're still doing keto. They may or may not be. And this it starts with ground beef. Onions, you can add garlic, but frozen okra, tomatoes. She does rotel. If I have rotel, I use it. Today we're using onion, celery, green pepper, petite tomatoes, and this yummy tomato bouillon that I found with chicken flavor. I'm telling you, this adds such a good flavor burst to any of your recipes. If y'all run across this, try it. Grab it. Good to keep on hand. Salt, pepper, and of course, since there's only 10 ounces of beef, I'm going to go ahead. Good morning, Teresa. I'm going to go ahead and chop up some carrots. I only have 3 in the fridge, so we're putting that in there too. So let me peel these carrots. How's the weather in North Carolina? My son that's in North Carolina sent us a text this morning and told us that he was going to New Orleans today to pick up a truck for work. So that he just wanted to let us know, just in case we creeped on him. We call it creeping. You know, find my friends on iPhone, we keep up with our kids, sometimes our spouse. Every once in a while I'll be somewhere, you know, say Kohl's or somewhere like that. Sunny and cool here too. It's Beautiful day this morning. Such a wonderful walk with the dogs this morning. Anyway, I'll be in Kohl's, you know, just browsing, and I'll get a text from my husband that says, "Get out of there." I don't know if I like that he knows he can look where I am at any time. Guess that's okay. Goes two ways. Take off the ends. So I was saying, Teresa, that this morning I started by taking inventory of my freezer just to see what I had on hand. And I ended up with, I've got like 14, the beginnings of 14 freezer meals in there. So I made a quick list of a few things that would finish out those meals, and I'm good to go. I think I'm going to share, got a neighbor down the way that's battling cancer. I think I'm going to share a couple of those. Those meals are good to have on hand for things like that. All right, quick chop. Carrots. No morning workout. Could play hide the veggies with the chopper, right? A Weight Watcher menu, 5 recipes. I don't know if this one qualifies. It's, you could do probably ground turkey with the okra and tomatoes, onions. The bell pepper rub is delicious in it, but today I'm going to use the crushed peppercorn garlic. I just call it okra hash. You could serve it with a side salad. Put this in the sink. Peeler. Let's break this up a little bit. I'm using my wok because I'm adding so many veggies. And I didn't put any oil in it. Although this is a pretty lean ground beef. Still have a little bit of grease coming out of it. Not a lot. I don't think it needs to be drained. But I'm just going to leave the juice in my tomatoes, and that's going to be enough liquid, I think, to cook the okra down. I got the meat broke up. I'm just going to go ahead and add the veggies in. Can of tomatoes, and like I say, any tomatoes, the Rotel will do, any flavor. If you just have regular diced tomatoes, petite diced, crushed tomatoes, whatever you have on hand, use what you have. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of water in here to rinse out all the goodness. About a tablespoon of our bouillon, the tomato bouillon. It's super concentrated, So I wouldn't put any more than a tablespoon. Salt, pepper. Teresa, did you have the multigrain bread for breakfast this morning? I watched your video yesterday. That looked fabulous. Yummy. And I'm not really measuring the okra. We love okra. So I'm probably putting 2 to 1 okra to other veggies. So it's going to be heavy on the okra. Let me grab a Twix-It to close this up. And back in the fridge. We use quite a bit of okra. Back in the freezer. Oh, I bet it is. I haven't tried that one yet. Alright, let me give this a quick stir. It with a little more salt on top of the okra. And I put it in just frozen. It's straight out of the freezer. So the burger, the ground meat was not completely done. The veggies are raw. Okra's frozen. And all of this is going to stew down together. I'm going to turn the temp down low. Give it a mix. Now, if you're not doing low carb, you could add a cup of frozen corn or perhaps a can of corn when your veggies are done. I would drain it so it's not real soupy, but if you want soup, don't drain it. And a tablespoon of that crushed peppercorn garlic because I love it. If you have the bell pepper rub on hand, that's my favorite. That just makes this recipe. I think that's the one that Debbie originally told me that she used. This one's my favorite though, on anything. Now let me find that lid. It's tidy. Oh, it is freshly washed. Okay, that's gonna cook. It's gonna take about 15 to 20 minutes, and that's gonna be our lunch today. I've moved from coffee on to Spark. Thank you, Tanya, for supplying the Spark this morning. So I thought I would talk to y'all a little bit. I've had a lot of people ask me about compost because I mention it so much. So while that's cooking, I thought I would talk to y'all a little bit about my compost routine. If you're just getting started, my garden is already, gosh, it's been years in the making. The way I started it, and I don't know if I'm repeating myself, if you've already heard me say this, just mute it or go on and do whatever else you're doing. But the way I started, because I was fighting crabgrass, I put down layers of old feed sacks. You could put down newspapers, you could put down any kind of biodegradable paper, something that's gonna break down and go away. It could be brown paper bags from the grocery store. So a weed barrier is what you're looking for. It could even be that black roll paper, that black weed barrier that you can actually purchase from the feed store or your local gardener, landscaper, yard place, whatever. So you're gonna lay that down. I originally used landscape timbers or fence post, old fence post. Eventually those rotted away and that just became part of my compost. So after I got my feed sacks down, I just started adding grass clippings. We had cows at the time, we had goats at the time, so when we raked out stalls, that went in there. So it got lots of organic material, if you know what I mean. Anything that came out of the house, peels, potato peels. We had a garden, so there was a lot of corn husks and potato peels and green bean ends and whatever didn't get tilled into the garden went into the compost bin. And then once a year, I would have a scoop of topsoil delivered, or we would get a scoop from the local dirt yard and have it put on our lowboy, and we would shovel it into that area. The big garden is 8 by 16, so one landscape timber by 2 landscape timbers. And now, using decking boards, the boys actually made it look pretty for me for Mother's Day one year. And then I have another 4 by 4. So once it's established, once you have it, all of that nice, I call it black gold. Once it's all broken down and it's a beautiful, almost potting soil effect, now when I take, this, so this is banana peels from yesterday. This is my onion ends. We had green beans last night, so it's the ends of green beans. It's my carrot peels. There's some tea bags down in here. So I can take that out, and in a corner of that garden, I can just dig myself a hole and bury it. And I work my way around that garden, and when I get back to the beginning, that will be black gold. Now, if you're just starting and you don't want to start anything that big, you can start with just a 5-gallon bucket, get it at Home Depot or Lowe's, and you can get them, I think in the paint section, a 5-gallon bucket with a lid. Take all of these scraps, put it in the bottom, buy another bag of just cheap garden soil, or potting soil, or I think you can get it for like $2.99. Make a layer of this, a scoop of the potting soil, put the lid on it. The next day and maybe it's a week, maybe you don't cook that often, maybe it's just a week and you have this much. Put it in you want a lid because critters will dig into it. And it will smell bad. It will draw flies. So you don't want this. These bowls have lids. We have a black lid that goes on this. So I don't necessarily leave this just sitting out without a lid on it overnight because it will draw those pesky little fruit flies. I just, I cook so much that I will toss this at the end of every day. Usually at the end of every day. If not, it gets that lid on it. So anyway, once you fill up your bucket, then you're ready to go into your flower bed or your landscaping as wherever you have it in your yard. And then eventually you'll have enough buckets to make your own little 4 by 4 or 8 by 16 or ever how big your garden is going to be. Good morning, Cheryl. Good to see you. We are talking about compost right now. So anyway, I hope that helps some of you. I'd love to see you all with your own, if nothing else, start an herb garden. Right now, I have herbs in the corner of my dining room because it's still kind of cool outside and I'm not really ready to move them out yet. So I'm just clipping them from the end of my dining room. And I'll turn the camera around so you guys can see that if you'd like. We'll take a little field trip. I'll just turn that around and you can see my herb garden. You see that in the corner there? So if you don't have a raised bed, bring the garden inside. Anyway, so let me give our dinner a stir back here, our lunch, a stir. Cheryl, we're doing okra hash, is what we have on the stove. I'll be sure and post the recipe, but remember to make it your own. This is going to still need about 10 to 15 minutes before it's ready. And like I say, this is our lunch. I have no idea where my husband is right now. Pretty sure he's somewhere on the acreage. He may be up in the corn patch. The corn is up about this high. So he's fighting the crows right now, hoping we could keep it for ourselves. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit. Anyway, I hope you guys get outside, plant a garden. Thank you, Teresa. I love green. You know what? I think I'd rather have plants instead of furniture. I really enjoy plants. You guys have a wonderful week. I hope you will join me back here probably Friday for Air Fryer Friday. Have a great week.